So good afternoon, everyone. So this is the Atlas Mid-Project event. My name is Nazih Tubal, and I will be your moderator today. I'm the communication manager for Revolve in Atlas Project, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here today for our online event. So as you can see, we are going to discuss the checkpoint of Atlas on our progress, share some knowledge, and discuss the challenge and opportunities ahead. So we have an exciting lineup of speakers who will provide insights into positive energy districts and also the role of cities in the energy transition. And also in a final part, project partners will share the updates on the latest municipalities and our pilot countries, and also the community of practice of Atlas. So I'm going to be sharing my screen so that you can see the presentation that we have prepared today. We are going to have a panel of discussion with our four speakers, Dr. Fedra Vanhuyse, Mr. Carl Piva, Petra, Lettink, and Christoph, Gollner. And we're going to be following up with an update on the different Atlas pilot cities and also the community of practice. And finally, with the closing remarks of the event. So I'll pass it on now to Claudia Carani, who is the project coordinator of Atlas, and to officially start the event.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks very much, Nadi, for introducing this webinar. I'm the project coordinator of Atlas, and I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of our consortium, which is composed by similar organization, I would say. We are four organizations that are committed to support municipalities in the development and implementation of SECAPs. And we have also two technical partners, Revolve, which is engaged for the communication activities, and Transition Stories, which is supporting us in the development of capacity building tools and to implement new strategies, new models to involve the local stakeholders and support the local authorities in the implementation of the climate strategies. Atlas is an important project for us because, as I said, we are four organizations that support many cities in the development, implementation of the SECAPs, and we could find out that especially small and medium municipalities struggled to implement the energy strategies. And we think that this kind of project could be really supportive, especially to find new opportunities to aggregate and share best practices among our local authorities. The final goal of Atlas is to set up in each country community of practices. The community of practices are a group of municipalities that have the opportunity to share their barriers and how they overcome the barriers and solutions, especially related to very complex topics, as we are talking today. Positive energy district is a very complex topic, and small and medium municipality don't have the capacity, the expertise, and the opportunity to identify solutions to implement positive energy districts. So starting from the development of capacity buildings, tools, and after the technical assistance support and the setup of energy community of practice, we think that we can really support especially small and medium companies, municipalities in implementing the climate strategies. So this is a new innovative project, and we aim to test our project in creation of four initially for community of practice, but we want to extend our network and achieve at least 14 community of practices in Europe, among Europe. So I would like to thank also the speakers that joined us today and will support us in disseminate knowledge and expertise among positive energy district. And I would like leave the floor to Nadi for the agenda presentation and to present also the next speakers. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Thank you for this very nice introduction about the project and also the goals of the Atlas project. So as you have seen, today's topic is positive energy districts. And this is what we are going to essentially base our panel discussion so that we can discuss with our expert speakers on the different aspects of positive energy districts, from the finance to the governance. So everything will be discussed, and there will be followed by a Q&A question. So we give the floor also to different participants so that they can ask all the questions that they have to our panelists. So as you know, the PEDs, as we say, are a vital role in making European cities more sustainable and livable. And the idea is to integrate them with renewable energy solutions and innovative urban planning. So I'm gonna give the floor now to our speaker, Dr. Fedra Vanhuyse, from the Stockholm Environment Institute, and she will be discussing on how local authorities can successfully set up PEDs and some challenges to be aware of. So I'm going to introduce Fedra as well. She's the head of the Division in Society's Climate and Policy Support and a senior researcher fellow at the Stockholm University Institute and a professor in economics and political science at Ghent University. She directs the Financing Urban Transition Program at the SAE and investigates on how to mobilize and redirect public and private funding to achieve more sustainable, just, and resilient cities. So Fedra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nazi, and hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. So Nazi, if you want to go to the next slide. So as Nazi said, I am indeed an economist, but also a political scientist. And so I actually look in my research a lot at the funding and financing question, because I think it is one of the biggest barriers to achieving more sustainable cities. And also, if you look here at this slide, this is from a publication that Christoph actually co-authored. And so he found that funding and business models is actually the largest challenge that many individuals, cities, and societies face to achieving positive energy districts. So I thought I'd highlight or dig a bit deeper into this topic for you today, because the challenge is actually a dual challenge. If you look at positive energy districts, it's both an economic question and a financial question. Very briefly, my colleagues will explain a little bit more what positive energy districts are, but it is not necessarily a district. It is actually can be a neighborhood, it can be a whole city. So it depends on which geographic scope you look at. But the plan is that you integrate measures that allow you to produce as much energy as you consume in a positive energy district. And so we're focusing normally on 3 measures. It's energy efficiency measures, so reducing your consumption or making sure you need less energy. It is energy production, so producing your own energy, but also there's a component around energy flexibility, allowing you to switch on and off and store energy as you produce it to use at a later stage. And so now when it comes to the funding challenge, there's actually 2 challenges. The first one relates to building the economic case. And so the economic case, it answers the question around net present value, or do I have a positive return based on the investments I'm planning to make? So you're looking at a number of things. You're looking at your upfront capital costs, so the investment that you need to make, but also you incorporate the recurring operations and maintenance cost, for example. On the income side, you look at both revenue, if you can sell the electricity that you produce, and savings. Is it cheaper to produce your own electricity than it is to buy from somewhere else. You look at the time frame and you look at a discount rate. And so what is one of the problems for PEDs when it comes to the economic case? Some of the measures, when they stand on their own, do not have a positive net present value. And so the economic case does not match. And this is sometimes the case for insulation. When you live in a house where you do not use enough energy, insulating it does not really make sense economically. So some solutions here that one could consider, you could bundle or stack different solutions. So bundling is pulling them together across different asset owners. Alternatively, stacking means you combine different measures for a same property. So you're looking at insulating, but also adding solar panels, etc. So that ultimately, by pulling together these different measures, you can generate a positive net present value. What are two of the essential points here is that you have a relatively stable regulatory framework so that you can have certainty over the revenue stream. So for example, if your government decides to change the feed-in tariff or the tariff structure or the sales price for your electricity, it could become less profitable to do certain measures. You could also look at different types of ownership. So for example, you could lease equipment, you could rent out your roof, you could use different products as a service that allows you to reduce your upfront investment, so your business case becomes positive. Next slide, please. There is, in terms of economic model, quite a lot of evidence that PEDs do contribute positively. So for households, if you generate your own electricity, for example, and you can sell it to the grid, you can make income. Also, investing in some of these measures actually reduce or increase the house price. There's examples there of different countries and different research that you could look at, but overall, making your house or insulating your house and adding renewable energy solutions does add value economically. What is then the second challenge? It is, next slide, please. It's a challenge around the financial case. So even if you have a positive net present value and it makes sense to make the investment, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have access to that finance. And it depends on your financial ability. So as an individual, what is your savings? How much debt do you have already? Also, as a company, what subsidies are there available to you to tap into? And then aside from the ability, there's also a question of the willingness to lend to certain actors. So does the risk return profile stack up? What return do investors want? Does the demand side meet the requirements? So for example, do they have sufficient capital? Are you as a government only lending to legal entities, or do you also lend to citizens and so on? So what is a problem here? So when we see in the economic case, yes, it does make sense to invest in positive energy districts. There is a mismatch when it comes to the financial case. So those who need it can't afford it. Investors want a high return, and for certain grants and funding schemes, the eligibility criteria do not allow you to access that finance. So some of the solutions, I've put them on my next slide, entail a collaboration. So bundling different needs across actors into an energy cooperative or as a public-private partnership is a possibility. So if you, for example, do not have the financial means yourself, you could collaborate with others, you bundle your solutions and then go to the financier, to a commercial bank, for example, or even governments to provide support. You should also work on blending different types of financing options. So here we're looking at subsidies, VAT exemptions. You could look at on-bill financing. You could look at energy performance contracting. You could look at an energy supply contracting. There's lots of different financing options. You could look at crowdfunding even via GoFundMe or Kickstarter or any other solution that would provide you with the funding. But it is quite challenging. And I see a question in the chat, how does a climate officer know where to go? It is a challenge. And so we are actually looking at making an overview of what are my different options, and then trying to play with different investment scenarios. Of course, noting that subsidies can change, rules can change, and the long-term consistency is one of the things that many struggle with, because it's not because there is a subsidy that you're necessarily eligible or that you will get it. So that then, of course, trickles down into having challenges with your business case. But I just wanted to say, so in the issue, everybody always, or a lot of people look at the economic model. Okay, there is one, but having access to finance is a big problem. And so now I will hand over to the next speaker, but I have one more slide here around. So if you look at the success factors of positive energy districts, and again, this is from the same publication that Christoph was on. So the third one is funding and business models are high up to make it a success. But the top one is stakeholder involvement. And this is one of the things that we see are actually essential in making any climate project work, is that you need to make sure that you have a solid base, that you involve everybody that is impacted, and that you work on including as many stakeholders as you can. Because, for example, when it comes to positive energy districts, one way to include everybody, or renewable energy projects, you oftentimes hear the concept of NIMBY, not in my backyard. And one of the things that works, if you do a benefit sharing scheme, so for wind turbines, that some of the profits that the wind turbine or the energy companies make goes back to the local community for projects, or to the local residents. And so having a good understanding of the stakeholders that will be impacted is essential to make it work. And I think Carl might talk more about that in his presentation on how they did it in Stockholm. So very happy to hand over it to you, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fedra. As you mentioned, Carl will be mostly concentrating on a case study in the district of Stockholm, and I'll pass the floor to you, Carl.
Thank you, Nazi, and Fedra, good points you are making, particularly when it comes to stakeholder engagement, which are tricky when it comes to actually doing it. So my name is Carl. I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Stockholm Green Innovation District. But today I'm here to discuss one of the things we are doing in the district, and that is in and around PEDs. So these districts, I suppose, represent the paradigm shift in how we produce, how we distribute, and how we consume energy within our urban landscapes. They are not solely focused on reducing energy consumption. Instead, they aim to generate more energy than they use, ensuring, I suppose, resilience, efficiency, and in the end, climate neutrality. And I believe we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in history where cities must lead the charge in the global energy transition. So with more than half of the world's population residing in urban areas today, and cities accounting for perhaps over 70% of global energy consumption, the traditional centralized energy systems are proving inadequate. These systems, reliant on large-scale power generation and extensive distribution networks, they are simply unsustainable in the face of rapid urbanization and climate change. And I believe this is where positive energy districts come in play. A PED, as you know, is a defined urban area that produces more renewable energy than it consumes on an annual basis. And this is in turn realized through a combination of energy efficient building designs, local renewable energy generation, smart energy management, and not the least active collaboration amongst the stakeholders. And many of those stakeholders are, by the way, local. So these districts are intricately woven into the urban fabric, supporting a much broader energy transition, while simultaneously, and I think this becomes even more important now with the war in Ukraine close to our borders, a local resilience around energy production or energy use. Some words about our energy market in Sweden. We have 4 key type of actors here each operating under different levels of competition and regulation. We have the electricity generators that operate in a fully competitive market, where companies such as Vattenfall, Uniper, and Fortum, along with independent wind and solar producers, generate power from a mix of hydropower, nuclear, wind, and bioenergy. These producers sell electricity on the Nord Pool market, where prices fluctuate, and sometimes they fluctuate quite a lot. So it's not really a well-working market from my perspective. But once electricity is produced, it's sold by electricity retailers. And that's another competitive segment of the market. In Sweden, we have over 100 suppliers, including companies like Greenly or Skellefteå Kraft, who offer consumers a variety of pricing models, contract options, and renewable energy solutions. So consumers have the freedom to choose their electricity provider, fostering a dynamic and in some ways a customer-driven market. However, when it comes to the infrastructure part that delivers electricity, the market is more tightly controlled. So transmission system operations, which basically handle the national high voltage grid, that's a state-controlled monopoly run by Svenska Kraftnät. And this organization ensures a stable and secure electricity supply across the country. So that's their job. At the regional level, on the other hand, you have electricity distribution networks that are also local monopolies operated by grid companies such as Ellevio or E.ON or Vattenfall. So those are the four major groups that operate in the market today. So I suppose in a way you could put it that Sweden's energy market tries to balance between competition on one hand and regulation on the other. So while electricity generation and retail are fully open to market forces, transmission and distribution remain regulated monopolies to guarantee stability and efficiency. And this is a model that, although it's working today, I believe we will need to re-examine the fundamentals of this model going forward. One of the biggest obstacles is the network concession requirement, which basically mandates that the electricity cannot be transferred between separate properties without a special permit. And if you have the permit, or if that can be somehow avoided, then you enter into taxation law because you will have to sell or buy electricity, even though you produce it locally, if you want to move it to the next building in your energy community. So this problem with paying grid fees, energy tax, and VAT, those are the things that contribute to the financial challenge that I believe Fedra just made some references to earlier, and also to a problem in actually finding a viable business model over time. So you could just simply note that the tax structures are designed for a centralized energy system where large-scale producers supply power to consumers, rather than a decentralized model where communities generate and share their own renewable energy. However, let's go into a little bit what we are doing in the district. We have built this testbed for cutting-edge sustainable technology. We are trying to foster collaboration among the stakeholder groups here really close to the problem, to see what we can actually change. So first and foremost, renewable energy integration is at the core of the effort being made. We are deploying solar panels, wind energy, and other renewable sources at the tenant association level, creating a decentralized and resilient energy network. And this approach tries to maximize local energy production and tries to facilitate an efficient sharing among buildings and the local infrastructure. Another important and critical component is smart energy management. So by leveraging digital tools, AI in some cases, certainly real-time data analytics, we can optimize energy flows to reduce waste and enhance efficiencies. So this takes us into the smart grids concepts. There's a lot to say about those. Circularity and resource efficiency are the fundamental principles that needs to guide these things. And as you know, PEDs are not just about energy. They encompass a holistic approach to the urban sustainability challenge, including utilizing waste heat from industrial and commercial buildings, integrating energy efficient transportation solutions, and promoting sustainable material use. So I think it sort of goes way beyond the simple energy community aspect. So by creating closed loop systems, we try to ensure that resources are utilized optimally and that urban districts contribute to this low carbon and resource efficient society. One of the most compelling examples of PED development in Sweden is the energy community in Hammarby Sjöstad. This initiative, facilitated by a local innovation company called Electricity, it's a testament to the power of citizen-led innovation in shaping the future of energy. Hammarby Sjöstad has long been recognized as a model for circular development in Stockholm, and its efforts in energy transformation further solidifies this role. The energy community in Hammarby Sjöstad has implemented a range of solutions. One of the most notable is the introduction of virtual electricity sharing models. So traditionally, energy produced by solar panels on one building could not be directly shared with another building due to regulatory and actually technical limitations as well. But by leveraging smart grid technology and also experimenting with new business models in this regard, residents and property owners in Hammarby Sjöstad have found ways to distribute locally generated renewable energy efficiently to reduce reliance on the external power grid. Additionally, the community has made advancements when it comes to standardizing energy data collection. So by creating a unified system for monitoring and managing an energy usage, buildings can optimize their energy consumption based on what's happening in real time. And this is not only improving energy efficiency, but also enabling a better integration of renewable energy sources. So that's a data-driven approach. Beyond technical solutions, what makes Hammarby Sjöstad unique, or at least stand out in our local area, is its commitment to citizen engagement. So this project is driven by local residents and property owners, demonstrating that bottom-up initiatives can play a role in the energy transition. I'm not so sure it's a good long-term viable proposition, but as an agent of change, I think it's brilliant. So community members actively participate in shaping the policies. They take part in local discussions about investment priorities, energy sharing agreements, or choice of long-term sustainable strategies. And that is a local on-the-ground involvement. One of the lessons we've learned is when residents take ownership of energy production, local engagement increases. It sort of goes beyond just energy collaboration, and sustainable solutions become more viable. So this is a model we believe that can be replicated in other parts of Stockholm, across Sweden and elsewhere. So by fostering strong local energy communities, it's a possibility to accelerate the transition to energy positive cities. But there are challenges, obviously. So one of the bigger hurdles for PEDs in Sweden is the regulatory landscape. There is no clear legal framework governing energy communities here. We've set up an economic type of legal entity that's separate from let's say, a business and separate from just a local community. So on one hand, the absence of rigid regulations allows for experimentation and innovation, but on the other, the lack of clarity can make it difficult to scale solutions and secure, let's say, the long-term investments that Fedra also alluded to is hard to get in this space. So there is a need for better policies supporting virtual energy sharing, economic incentives for sure for decentralized energy production. Traditional energy markets are designed around centralized power generation, and existing policies often do not account for the unique characteristics of these energy positive districts. So to unlock the full potential here, policymakers must realize at the end that we can't put ourselves in the position of relying on central distribution of power and electricity. This needs to become a complement that's being used much more frequently. You mentioned also capacity building, I think, in the early part of this talk, and I think that's another area where we need to help each other. Since this is a paradigm shift, successful implementation will require interdisciplinary expertise, particularly in the early phases. Once this becomes more of a household item, I'm sure we're going to see providers that actually do this for a living, and it won't be as difficult to navigate as it is today. I thought I mentioned just 10 highlights of what we've done here in Hammarby in Stockholm. We've established a virtual energy sharing model. We have made collective investments in solar power and battery storage. Up to 18 housing cooperatives have pulled together to do that. We have standardized on energy data collection. We have formed an energy community as an economic association to be able to have a coordinated body to drive this. We have pulled together demand and load management strategies to shift power from one part of the grid to the next. We have established an integration platform in BRICS, which is a digital market platform to optimize energy and also provide things like open up for smart charging for EVs, for instance. We have experimented with vehicle-to-grid pilots. We have also tried some grid balancing approaches as well. And we have done joint procurement and energy efficiency upgrades along in these groups. And it sort of touches on a lot of different areas. And I'm surprised that people actually managed to find their way when doing this. I haven't personally been doing it. It's happening in the district in close collaboration with electricity and these housing associations. So I think these are a sort of a little taste of what is going on in the Stockholm Green Innovation District, and it will be interesting to listen to the rest of your experiences here as well.
Thank you very much, Carl. I think we all needed to hear successful examples, and I think that this case already shows that there are successes that can be replicated around Europe. And I think that it's very important to share as well these sort of examples that we have so that we can learn from them and that they could be replicated again. So I'll start now by passing the floor to our next speaker, Petra Lettink, who is the director of Butterwante, sorry for the pronunciation. So she will be providing insights into community-led energy solutions. Let me quickly introduce Petra. So she's a strong promoter of residence-based approach in research, sustainable and proof neighborhoods. She's driven by her ambitions. Petra is the director, as I said, of Butterwante, and a Dutch cooperative that supports local residents' initiatives in implementing collective heat solutions. She's also expert in local integrated approach towards sustainable cities. Petra, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Nazi, and hello, everyone. Well, I do this in collaboration with my former organization, and that is Klimaatverbond Nederland. and they are also a partner in this Atlas project. So I would like to highlight that also because of our neighborhood approach, our integral neighborhood approach. Klimaatverbond works on that very hard. So I would like to highlight that also. And from my organization, as you said, buurtwarmte. If you know Dutch, the name says all, because we want to produce heat on a neighborhood level. And we, as a cooperation buurtwarmte, do not want to do it ourselves. We try to let the people in the neighborhoods themselves be the director of the process and what is the best solution for that neighborhood. So they will have the say and the ownership if they would like to have it. And of course, all that should be in collaboration with the local government. So yeah, it's a complex process. So it's another process than what Fedra and Carl already talked about. There's a lot of complexity, but I think we really need to focus on the demand and supply side. And the demand side and the supply side can be in local hands. And that is, of course, what we do. Next to that, you have the demand and supply side from the house point of view. So we really need to reduce the energy use and the energy demand from the homes. And the homes, when we talk about the climate goals in the Netherlands to 2050, we all need to be gas free. We use a lot of natural gas in the Dutch built environment, and it has to be zero in 2050. And if you look at what the houses look like and what they use now, and what if you try to translate that until 2050, we need to ensure that the demand and supply is in a sustainable way linked to each other and without burning fossil fuels for electricity and heating. So that comes to you see it in my slide already, to actually the goal of renovation, or at least lowering the energy demand for 1,000 houses per day. So that's a big goal we have to achieve, because from all the houses in 2050, 90% is already here, and 90% needs some renovation if you look at the year 2050 to be, to be proof for when people getting older or want to start a family. It's all life questions that also need to be involved. So that is why we are pleading for a more holistic, future-proof renovation. This needs to be done by businesses that have to have the capacity to do so. So you also need like a more industrialized approach to renovate individual, particularly private-owned houses. So that's also a complexity, because every decision that has to be made about renovation or energy saving in the home is the question on an individual kitchen table, and not something that you have to do with policy. So you have to, it's a complex range of the demand and supply, as I already talked about. So that is what we are focusing, and the starting point is give the decision making back to the place where we think it should be, and that is with the people in the neighborhood. If you enable them to make the decision for their own home, but also what they would like to do in their own community, and hopefully be an energy community, then you have already a few of the things tackled that Fedra already said is a success factor. You have stakeholder involvement, especially when you also involve the businesses that have to do the renovations. And you have the citizens' involvement because people are directing their process themselves. So that's a little bit more about my 3 highlights on my sheet. I hope it's clear, but I'm very available, of course, for the questions and answering. But this is just another point of view and also a confirmation on what Fedra and Carl already said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petra. And this is a good reminder to all our participants to leave their questions as well in the chat so that we can answer them later on in the Q&A session. I'll pass the floor now to our last speaker, Christoph Gollner. So he's the coordinator for the Positive Energy Districts Transition Pathway of Driving Urban Transitions Partnership. Christoph, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll try not to go too deep into content specifics because wise words have been said by my previous speakers, and a lot of key challenges have been mentioned already. So we'll go a bit more into kind of how we try, as a DOT partnership, try to support both the research and innovation community in developing their projects, but very much so in how we try with the possibilities that we have as a research and innovation program, try to support cities in their ambitions regarding the energy transition, climate neutrality, you name it. The partnership, as the name says, Driving Urban Transitions, aims at supporting cities in tackling their challenges through very applied as possible research and innovation projects. We are quite aware that the main need probably out there is actual funding of implementation measures. But what we can do is kind of putting together resources from more than 28 countries in providing solutions, very applied solutions through research and innovation projects for the cities as part of capacity building. So what we're also doing is not only kind of delivering annual calls, but having a very intense interactions with and engagement of the stakeholder communities with the projects themselves. We engage cities specifically in specific formats. So to be as close as possible at the needs of the actual problem owners, so to say. We do that try to do that in a rather holistic perspective. You see the 3 transition pathways that we are following. That's one on circular urban economies, one on the 15-minute city mobility transition, and one on positive energy districts. And we try to link those transition pathways, as we call them, as much as possible and find and promote and find holistic solutions. If you're more interested in specific activities of the partnership, there are some QR codes. Please have a look at them and see also if you're interested how you can engage in our activities, but specifically also in our annual calls. Next slide, please. As has been said, yeah, a lot of keywords have been mentioned so far. So for us, in terms of the positive energy districts concepts, one of the key challenges: how do we integrate technological solutions or strategic thinking or conceptual thinking in terms of the positive energy districts into an actual urban structure? So the challenge is probably most will agree with me is not so much the specific technological solutions per se, but rather kind of facilitating them in concrete urban contexts. And the contexts are different wherever we go, in the countries, in different cities, depending on in the different neighborhoods, as has been mentioned also already. The main goal is a decent kind of improving resilience of the energy system through decentralization. And with that supporting the overall big goal of climate neutrality. That's clear. And with that, we're also supporting kind of the pathways towards Europeans goal, the Green Deal goals, the cities mission goal in Europe, climate neutrality by 2030 for front-runner cities. One of the key questions I would like to come back, what also Fedra said, is indeed an economic question. And I agree completely what you said, and I might add to that. Also the social impact or the kind of the actual benefit for the end user is dependent on in some kind of economic success or economic viability of this concept. And I think we still need to provide the evidence that there is not only there is a benefit for a sustainable development of our cities and our world, but also for the end users. Because if you want to engage residents, if you want to engage the end users, we need to come up with a clear concept of why this is important for them and also in the end beneficial. I don't want to go into too much into an economic argumentation, but I think this is one of the key questions in order to really mainstream the concept across different contexts in Europe. Yeah, the graphic, it was a beautifully animated graphic, but we took it out. So you can, there are kind of different elements that these icons should highlight. It has been said, high share of locally generated renewable energy, energy communities, the engagement of the locals, energy storage is one of the key questions, balancing through energy flexibility measures, balancing fluctuations in energy provision. Energy efficiency is one of the key words. The whole big question of how to interconnect different buildings or infrastructures. Yeah, we also came to the conclusion that kind of the short definition of positive energy districts is always areas that produce more energy than they consume. This is also a bit of a barrier for actual implementation. If we look at actual, in that sense, actual positive energy districts projects. So what we're trying to do, please stay, just I'm finishing it. What we try to do is kind of a bit reframing the word positive in an updated framework definition that we will be disseminating soon. From the energy balance towards the positive impact on the energy system, on the overall energy system. The energy system as a whole functions of positive energy districts in an updated, in a future-proof energy system. What is the role? How can they balance different functions, etc. And not so much on the actual energy balance, because as it has been mentioned, especially by Petra, the key challenge probably is the refurbishment, is the renovation that we're facing. I'm very positive that for new developments, we will be pretty good on track to provide a structure like a positive energy district. The real challenge lies in how do we a similar thing in the existing housing, in the existing building stock that we have. And that is not solved yet, I would say, and we need to there's work to do. Next slide, please. This is more, and you can click more, please. There we have the animation still. Yes, no, back, yes. Just to show these are the projects and make you aware, we have annual calls with at least 3 topics on positive energy districts. It's worth looking into the topics. We're currently scoping the call topics not only for 25 but also for 26, which can give you also a bit longer term perspective. The inclusion, participation of cities, city administration in the projects is mandatory. So that's also a measure how we try to really follow the challenges of the cities. 2 project generations are basically working, 22, 23 call. The call 24 is an evaluation, and the next call is this year again. It's usually opening on the 1st of September. More info also in the QR code. And on the left, you see that we have so far funded 37 positive energy districts projects and really trying to work hard on synthesizing their outcomes. We also have a quite close cooperation, or try to work as close as possible with the projects themselves. So yeah, next slide, please. And this is, if you're not aware of that, together with the cost action PED EUnet, we have been developing a database, and are still doing so, on positive energy districts projects and cases. It's continuously filling up, but currently I think we have 98 cases represented there. Different level of data quality, I have to say, but still it's a good entry point for those who are interested in different strategies and data to have a look there. And yeah, we are kind of further building on that, and then also try to kind of make it a bit more accessible. But for now, it's also a good entry point. Otherwise, next slide, please. You're always welcome. No, it's not there. You're always welcome to contact me if you have questions or any kind of ambition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christoph. We'll make sure that we share all the contacts of our speakers with our participants in a follow-up email. So we are starting now the Q&A session. I see that there were already some questions that have been answered in the chat. And one of them actually was directed to Petra. So I will read it because it was not answered yet. How are the challenges different from the heat transition versus the energy transition at regional level? And do you have good, inspiring examples? So this question is addressed to Petra.
All right, well, thank you for the question. And I think that takes a lot of time maybe to discuss that all. But I think the heat transition is different from the energy transition if you talk about maybe cooperative wind or solar energy, is because it not only involves the source of energy, but it also involves people's homes. So it's one by one. People need to decide that they want to contribute to a collective system, and in what way they would like to take it in their own hands. So that's what we also support as Buurtwarmte in taking on that process as well. And of course, when you decide you want to join in a locally sourced heat network, then of course you need to do something in your home, because you also need to decide, do you do it on a low temperature or a middle heat network? So all those questions also need to be answered, and they also need to be realized, because you cannot change your source of heat and then do not something on the way your house is built, because you don't want to be in the cold or do not have a functioning system. So all these questions are also on an individual level, but also on a collective level. And of course, you as a neighborhood are also in interaction with what does the rest of the city do when it's just a neighborhood. So it's like it's multi-layered and multi-dimensional. So that makes it more complex. I think it doesn't make it less interesting. It makes it more interesting, but it shows you how complex the targets are for the people at home. And through the collective process, I think we make it easier. And in the long run, we also make people want to join and to have positive side effects, like maybe when there's profits to be made, you can enhance the public space of your neighborhood, or do something with mobility. So I think there's a lot of advantages, but it's a complex process. So I hope I answered the question. Yeah, thanks.
Is there anyone from our panelists that would like to follow up on that, or we can move on to another question? Okay. Yes.
Just make a small addition. So Petra, I think you're totally right. I just read the book, How Big Things Get Done. from a professor that analyzed mega projects. And so he goes in terms of costs, the ones that overrun all the time are Olympic Games and nuclear power plants because they are once off, etc. And so he was saying like which projects work really well. It's wind energy parks, solar parks, because the production process is quite modular, quite repetitive, and so that's why you can come in on time, on budget, oftentimes faster. But if you then talk about a neighborhood, if you have, for example, different types of houses, different years of build, different energy efficiency standards, different owners, it becomes a lot more challenging. So I would say probably the heat transition is also harder than the energy production, because you could do that at a different scale. But it's a good book for anybody who's looking to read about project management. The think slow, act fast principle. So
That's a great recommendation, Fedra. We're going to follow up with two other questions before moving on to the other session. We have a question, well, for Fedra again. We have one from Peter in LinkedIn. Do you think private organizations can and should provide a great impact on local sustainability efforts than city and state governments?
So I think this is quite a normative question when you say can and should they. So I think everybody can and should do what they feel like doing, because I kind of think probably well, if we regulate too much, it creates resistance and it can be anti-democratic. So, but I think everybody can contribute if they want to, even if it's small. And I think if you're a company, like tracking your supply chain, for example, doing an analysis of the emissions that you cause, looking through your own energy contracts that you have, which one do you go to? So I think mine is not that, I don't think that private companies should do more than cities and regions. I think they might be able to do maybe more because they are not subject to public procurement rules, for example, so they might be able to move faster than certain governments. But I think it's more a question. I think everybody can contribute. And so I think in the state that we're in, climate change is causing substantial economic damage already, even a lot of social damage. So I think if it's a should you do something, well, yeah, I think everybody should do something, even if it's not consuming energy, putting on a sweater instead of putting on the heating, opening the window instead of putting on aircon and things like that. So, but I will leave it there.
Perfect. Is there anyone from our panelists that would like also to follow up on this? Or we can move on to another question. So it's already answered by Carl, but I think this is an important one. On the topic of sustainable renewable energy, wind energy has been shown to have a significant negative impact on the environment while also having a low impact overall energy creation. Are these sustainability limitations being considered by local cities as they build out their sustainability policies? So this answer is for Carl. This question is for Carl, sorry.
Well, I was hoping to pass that one along. One point that I tried to make answering it was that it is easier to get a permit to install solar, for instance, on roofs, as particularly in urban environments. It's cheaper and it's a different investment and a different permit cycle for it. Yeah, but you got to wonder. I suppose taking a sort of trying to zoom out a bit, and let's compare with, for instance, cars. We've had the combustion engine for over 100 years. It's taken 100 years to get it to the point where it is today. We've had battery cars for, I suppose, less than 10 in any at scale. And it goes quite quickly. So it might not be good the first years or you probably need a couple of generations of improvements before things actually are fully understood and fully optimized. I'm not sure if that translates to wind, but I do share the concern, and I'm sometimes wondering the same thing. So I'll be happy to pass this one along to somebody else. I tried to dodge the bullet there, but you caught me.
I think Petra wants to add.
Yeah, well, maybe just to remind us all that we, in the Netherlands, we come from a very centralized system of energy, and you described it already. There are different layers and different stakeholders also involved in the energy grid. But I think if we see to the future, we need a lot of different sources because it's growing still, although we do a lot of energy saving. So we, if we do not change our energy demand very radically, I think we need a lot of energy sources to be one whole. So we need a decentralized system, and we need different sources in our system. So if you look at that, of course, we really have to improve a lot about how we do it in these days. But I think if you see to the future, we need a lot of sustainable sources that go well into the future. So that would be my answer, not just one energy source is not good and the other one, there's something wrong with that also. If you see it from circularity, there's a lot of things going on, and you already said the innovation process doesn't go within a few years. So I think we need to have the big picture in our mind, that we need a decentralized system where we can change things in if we go ahead and have different knowledge, but stay flexible and leave it in our own hands, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Petra, for these insights. Perhaps we should have one more question. This is actually an open question that we received on LinkedIn. So the question is, if we consider a building as an energy career and energy producer, what can be the basis for effective, we lost the question. Yeah, what can be the basis for effective energy management locally and city-wise? So perhaps this is an open question for the panelists. If there is somebody perhaps that would like to answer this question.
Well, I could start. I mean, as somebody pointed out, simply relying on one delivery method or one central solution, that can't be the way things should be allowed to operate in the future. We need to have something that's more resilient, where you can share energy with your neighbors, where there are local storage in cities that you can use during times of unavailability from, say, a central grid. So this really should be viewed in the perspective of multiple different solutions that complement one another. You shouldn't be completely reliant on one source. And I think we are in that position, many of us today, that we are reliant on one source of, say, energy production. And that can't be the future. Just look at how devastated that approach could be in today's world.
Christoph wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question when it comes to positive energy districts to ask what the building is not only kind of something that consumes energy, but this very much also could and should be also something that produces actual energy. And apart from solar panels and these kind of things, I think there are more options, and it has also been mentioned. This goes very much into good urban planning, I would say, because it is about different urban functions and how to combine them, and also combine them in the perspective of sharing and trading energy. There are examples of big companies trading their waste heat to local neighborhoods for them to use in this energy. I think this needs to be further developed and then kind of put in a broader and more strategic perspective. I think locally we have some good examples. I think one of the key challenges still is to integrate all these little solutions and different approaches in kind of citywide strategies, and then provide schemes to replicate it in other contexts. That's one of the key challenges we have. But that's definitely something to look further into, kind of not only seeing very much seeing the productive side of a building and different functions.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And the final words from Fedra before moving to our next session.
Thanks, Avi. And so I kind of just wanted to build on what Christoph was saying. Indeed, so how buildings are not just only where energy is consumed, it's also opportunities for production. And this ties a bit to the question that Yves de Bosser also put in the chat around Stockholm being a city of 1 million. So can you do a positive energy district on what scale? So I would suggest like you should start with mapping the consumption behavior, but also the production opportunities of a building, and then looking from one building towards a neighborhood, because I think in general, it's cheaper to trade with the neighbors than to trade further away. So I think you could do a positive energy district quite small and then slowly even grow. But I think you need to map quite a bit of different things. So what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? How do you want to include? What is the financial ability of all my actors? What funding is available? So it can be quite complex to start with a positive energy district, but it can be at any scale, shape or form, and you could build different scenarios. 1, 2 buildings, 20 buildings, a whole block, etc. But yeah, it requires some thinking around what is the best option here and how can you do it in such a way, to go back to an earlier question around social inclusion and equality, because I think there's a lot of resistance when it comes to climate because the cost of living is so high. And so it feels like we have a little bit the Matthew principle, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, kind of. So how can you design a PED so that everybody advances and then you get the whole social movement with it too? But I'll stop there in the interest of time, and happy to keep chatting also offline about this topic. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fedra. And I see we are answering some questions as well in the text box. So feel free to drop any of your questions and we'll try to do our best to answer them. But we have to move on to our next session, and we will now continue with an update on the community of practice of At-Last. So we are going to update you with Tessa. She's going to present to you, well, what is a community of practice and what is the community of practice of At-Last specifically, so that we can discuss the different parameters. And I'll give the floor now to Tessa so she can present you the community of practice of At-Last.
Thank you, Nazi, and good afternoon, everybody. I was very interested to hear all the insights of our experts. And I would like to also point out that we also have a huddle environment on which we have a course designated at the Positive Energy District. So there you can definitely find out more about the theories behind it, but also some good examples. Because this is one of the pillars we use to support cities in setting up the PEDs. The other pillar are the communities of practice, which are currently running in 4 countries. But of course, a community of practice is quite a broad term. As you can see here, what does it actually mean? It's a group of individuals that come together around a certain well-defined problem, and they engage in collective learning. So they learn from each other, or through an online learning environment, or through an expert that you invite to one of the sessions. And the idea is that it's regular and sustained within a specific time frame. But of course, in order to really define it as at last community of practice, there are some specific requirements. Can you maybe move to the next slide? Yes, so the communities of practice, what do they, of the at last project, they have a few things in common. They have one COP leader, each of which is like a partner in the consortium. They also have a fixed group of participants who have committed a certain amount of time. Why is this important? Because we notice that to engage in active learning, a certain amount of trust is necessary. In case you have a one-off event, like a webinar or a workshop where the participants don't know each other, it is quite hard to share more detailed information, as it can be a risky thing if you are not sure of the other person's intentions. So to increase the learning and the knowledge sharing, we have asked for this fixed group to come together a couple of times and to enhance the trust in between them. The next very important parameter is that the problem or project you are working on is well defined. And this is one issue that was apparent when we were starting up the COPs, that the learning questions were actually very broad. As you might see in the huddle, there were questions about financing and about the technical things, but also more strategic, like how do we do multi-annual planning, or how do I manage my stakeholders? How do I know which stakeholders? These are very broad questions, actually. So in order to have a well-running community of practice, you need to boil it down to something more specific. A lot of COPs in the Atlas project has chosen to focus on the project that the participants are actually working on. And this is a very interesting idea because it can also enhance the transfer. Transfer in an educational point of view means that the stuff you learn or train at are directly linked to your job at the same time. So this makes sure that what you learn can be applied directly, which increases the value for everybody inside the community, as it's time that is spent one time, but you can use it for multiple things. And what we think works well in order to set up a thriving community of practice is to ensure you have one well-defined timeline with 3 to 5 activities, depending on the depth of the questions and problems. And we would like to extend this methodology to anybody who is interested in this topic, to use the huddle environment together with live sessions in order to get a well-thriving community of practice. Maybe the next slide I will go over quite shortly, because I said we would like to support anybody who wants to work on a COP as well. You can get in touch with us and we will find out what your needs are, what your idea is, and we will help you improve it by introducing some of the things we have tried out in the Atlas COPs, and ensure that your community can be also help get stronger, and that the learning can be improved with the e-learnings or something else. And if you have a meeting with us, the end result could be in the schedule we designed for your COP. So on the next slide, you will see what the structure of a COP would actually look like for the Belgian community. And if you get in touch with us, we will ensure to fine-tune your specific situation in a format that gives you a framework to organize the different activities for your group of participants. And if you have any questions, we can handle them maybe later, because I think the timing is already quite short. So I will hand the word to Claudia, I think, to...
Yeah, Thank you very much, Tessa. Just to remind the participants about the Huddle platform, we'll be sharing a QR code so that you can scan it at the end of the session, and you have access directly to the platform where you can find a lot of courses that are available that you can join, and it's very much interesting. Thank you very much again, Tessa. So we'll be now going to the last part of the event. So now we will be providing you some updates about our pilot cities and what has been achieved so far in the Atlas project. And for this, Claudia will be sharing with us these updates.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, in Atlas, so we engaged 4 community of practices. They are based in 4 countries. As you can see here, there is a list of the cities involved. We have 10 cities in Netherlands. We have 5 cities in Belgium and also in Sweden, and 6 cities in Italy. So in total, we have 26 municipalities that are involved in the community of practices. The main idea of the community of practice is that they are involved in the capacity building activities. They are testing the capacity building we developed with Atlas, and they are involved also in pilot projects. So we asked them to propose pilot activities where we could provide technical assistance. This technical assistance was based on participatory processes implementation, stakeholder engagement activities, technical assistance to implement projects, financial assistance to deliver application for funding or grants at regional and national level. And so in each country, the community of practices are quite different, I would say. But I think that there is a common activity among all the community of practice that also support the initial figure of Fedra, that stakeholder engagement is really, really important to implement climate actions. So all the cities asked to receive support in this stakeholder engagement activity. And I think is really crucial to implement the following activities that you can see here. In fact, the Dutch pilot involved 10 municipalities, but is focusing on the neighborhood retrofitting regeneration. So the Netherlands are working mostly on supporting the local neighborhood in identifying strategies to retrofit the neighborhood, also looking at the finance of the opportunities that are available, and they are implementing meetings, webinars, and the stakeholder engagement in this phase is quite crucial. And the Belgium pilot involves 5 cities. Among them, in 5, they are focusing on climate communication and planning, and they will develop in the activities in the next month related to the implementation of public tender and best practices. While in Italy, we have 6 municipalities, and we are implementing actions in different topics. Some of them are working on adaptation to climate change and renewable energy communities. And even in Italy, we have the issue of the engagement of the citizen and of the local stakeholders, especially in 2 municipalities where they're working on the regeneration project of of districts. And I think is quite important here to, according with what we discussed until now, to highlight the issue that sometimes politics have to choose when they retrofit, they regenerate a district, they have to choose between adaptation and mitigation. So in Italy, especially in Italy, we have the problem of heat island, and so sometimes you have to decide if there is not so much space in the cities to allocate to both to adaptation and mitigation. So you need to decide if you want to have plants and green areas, or you want to have renewable plants. So sometimes it's crucial to understand which is, so it's very important to discuss with the politics and understand which are the impacts, also engage the local stakeholders and the citizen in this kind of decision-making process. And then we have the Belgium pilot. It involves 5 cities, and they are discussing a lot on climate finance and investment. So this is the main topic. It's quite interesting, and it's very advanced. Sorry, this is a mistake. It's a Swedish pilot, and they are very advanced in finance. So I think they can bring experience, good practices to all the other community of practices. So inside the community of practices, there are best practices that are shared among the cities, but also between the community of practices in different countries. It's very important to have best practices that can be transferred to other community of practices. So I would say Italy is quite advanced in adaptation, and but Swedish is much more advanced in finance, while Dutch and Belgium probably in communication and citizen engagement strategies. So the idea is that there is a transfer of good practices also among the community of practice to have a European community of practice in the end that can support other cities and other community of practices. The idea of the community of practice is that it can facilitate the dialogue among the local authorities. So there is a space where the exchange of experience is supported more than a wide group of municipalities. So this is because we think that it's important to have a solid group of municipalities with a leader, of course, but as a consolidated group that work together, because it's very easily to have a discussion in a small group of cities, of course, and also to support each other in overcome barriers. And also the pilot cities are supporting us in testing the capacity building program we are developing with the transition cities and transition stories, sorry. And this is important because they will provide us feedback on the capacity building tools we are developing that could be used by the cities themselves, but also by the coordinator of the community of practices to implement training activities and as a support, external support for the training activities. So this is more or less where we are, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for the final remarks. Indeed, we have at least gone through all the stages since we started for Atlas, and gave a very good summary on the different activities that we had, and we're very lucky to be with the speakers and experts that we have today. so that participants can ask their questions and also follow up on our activities. So as I mentioned earlier, we invite you to join the online community by scanning this QR code. You'll be able to access the Huddle platform. From there are multiple courses as well that you can follow up and just to see what we are doing at last. I also encourage everybody to stay connected to the Atlas community by joining all the social media channels that will be here on the chat. You can find them in the chat section. You can follow our social media and subscribe again to our newsletter if you want to stay updated on our different activities and what we're doing in the project. So thank you very much again to everybody for joining us. We're very happy to have hosted this event. And we'll be keeping in touch again. I want to take this opportunity to take a picture with all of our speakers and project partners so that we can follow up again with a nice picture to remember this event. So I'll just do a very quick screenshot. Okay, that's done. Well, thank you very much again, and we'll see you at the next event of Atlas.
Thank
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.